The Ric Flair Show.
My name's Ric Flair.
Woo! Woo! To be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo! Right here, I'm the man.
The 16-time world champion.
Woo! Back behind the mic and telling it like it is.
Woo!
If you're not carrying the big gold, you're second best no matter what you tell yourself.
I'm the best.
Y'all playing catch-up ball to the nature boy.
And now, your hosts of The Ric Flair Show, Ric Flair and Conrad Thompson.
Woo!
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to The Ric Flair Show, brought to you by the MLW Radio Network, and of course, we're hosted right here on RicFlairShow.com. And today's our second episode. It's July 13th. It's early in the a.m., and I'm coming to you live from the Conradison, but the Nature Boy is on location. He's got some big stuff cooking tonight, and he's a couple hours behind us, so let's wake him up. Catch everybody up. Where are you at today, Rick?
I am in L.A., Los Angeles, and it is 6:30 in the morning, my time. Thanks, Conrad, for calling me.
You're welcome.
And getting ready to attend the ESPYs with members of the WWE and my daughter, so who is currently the the women's champion.
So here's the deal. Lots of wrestling stuff going on tonight. Of course, we've got NXT. We've got the Cruiserweight Classic tournament starting. But Ric Flair and company, including the lovely Charlotte, are going to be on the ESPYs tonight. So catch it if you can. We're coming to you live from the Conradison here in Huntsville, Alabama. And let's get right into it, Rick. Let's do our Figure 4 top stories, brought to you by the RicFlair.com online store.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, it's time.
Figure 4 top stories brought to you by the RicFlair.com online store. Check out brand new items like koozies, bottle openers, hats, money clips, t-shirts, and more. Be sure to check out RicFlair.com and click on the online store at the top of the page.
Conrad, don't let me forget to give my boss, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, a plug. He will be here as well with his beautiful daughter, the CEO of the WWE, Stephanie McMahon.
We'll get you some of that. Come on, check it out tonight on the ESPYs, the McMahons, the Flairs. It's going to be a big time. And
that ought to be worth a couple zeros on my next check.
Let's just get right into it, Rick. We've got the big stories, and one of the big stories this week is a McMahon on every show. They finished Raw this week, and it looks like Stephanie's going to get Raw. Shane's going to get SmackDown. Do you like this setup?
Well, I think the draft is good. You know, as we talked about last week, I can't think of any two better, more qualified people to be running the shows. It's just, you know, that when you do the draft, it's all about depth of the depth chart and everybody being healthy. So, I mean, in terms of entertainment value, I think that's great. I just hope that everybody stays healthy, because if you start separating all the main players, it's important that the rosters stay healthy.
Don't you assume at this point they're trying to set up Triple H versus Shane at a big pay-per-view, maybe SummerSlam?
You know, I've heard that. I've never asked, and I probably should. I probably will next time I see Hunter. But to me, it would be the natural. That would be the great thing.
They're supposed to be announcing new GMs for each show next week. Who would you nominate if you had somebody to work with Stephanie and somebody to work with Shane? Anybody come to mind that you think would be an interesting dynamic there?
Well, you and I discussed this yesterday after watching Raw, and I have nobody comes to mind. I mean, you know, obviously Paul Heyman would be a great GM, but I don't think Paul it works for him except when he's with Brock. So I don't know. I'm trying, and otherwise I can't think of anybody fresh and new.
Yeah,
you know, it could be you and me.
Well, I don't know how long we'd be on the air, but that would be fun while it lasted.
Yeah, but I really have no idea, and I don't have any insight. So I may get a scoop or two this weekend or this week while I'm here with Vince and Stephanie and some of the other guys. So I can always get something out of Austin, and he knows he's here too. So, and by the way, I'll have to show him what place our podcast is in. But
oh my gosh, I love you. Still a heat seeker at 67. Also a heat seeker this week, Mr. Brock Lesnar. He had the big win at UFC 200. Rick, were you surprised the way, not just that Brock won, but the way he won at UFC 200?
You know, I was really trying to think, what's the word I'm looking for? I really didn't know what to expect. until I watched the weigh-in. When I saw him at the weigh-in, I said, Hunt is in a bad place. I mean, Brock was so much bigger and looked to be in so much better shape. As a matter of fact, I've never seen Brock in better shape. I mean, he looked phenomenal. He dominated. He was aggressive from the start. He's, as we know, a world-class wrestler. And I don't know Mark Hunt. Obviously, he's a real tough guy, but he didn't look to be in the kind of condition he needed to be in a match to be in a legitimate fight with Brock Lesnar, which basically that's what UFC is.
Do you think Brock should fight again, or do you think after that he should just pack it in?
I most definitely think he should fight again, and I think he thinks he should too. I text him. I haven't talked to him, but he's in a good place, and why wouldn't he? Geez, he could be the champion of both companies.
If you were booking WWE, what would you do with him at SummerSlam and beyond? Would you put the belt on him?
I don't know about putting the belt on him because I thought there was a void because of his schedule, limited schedule. As far as SummerSlam goes, nobody thinks more of Randy Orton than I do, but I think Randy's in a bad place. This guy, it takes him about a year to slow down after he's been on one of these. So I'm just saying that facetiously, but Jesus. It's hard to turn it off. It's like Kevin Green, my friend who's going into the Hall of Fame, who did wrestle in our business, was an all-pro linebacker many times, going into the Hall of Fame this year, actually in August, and in Canton. He just couldn't turn it down. Ask Arn. When he and I wrestled LeBron James, when Arn and I wrestled Kevin Green and Mongo McMichael in Baltimore, Kevin was a lot to handle. Not that we ever did, but we attempted to.
Well, Final Deletion has been a lot to handle for the internet, and all of a sudden this New Day Wyatt family segment became a great cause of debate over the weekend. Were they going to try to copy Final Deletion? What would it look like? And then we got to see it on Monday night. Where are you at on Rick? Where are you at on this, Rick? In WCW, it seems like you guys were slaughtered for doing this type of stuff, but now in 2016, strangely, folks seem to dig it. What do you think about these two?
Well, here's the thing. You and I talked about the thing last week with the Hardys. Once again, the WWE took a step forward above and beyond because the production values were, obviously 10 times better. They're being shot by, world-class company and world-class production facilities. And, with Kevin Dunn pushing the buttons, it's going to be the best product ever. And it was awesome. I mean, I'm such a fan of Bray Wyatt. I'm glad they did something like that with him.
Well, all right, that's your Figure 4 top stories brought to you by the RicFlair.com online store. Check out.
You admit the ending with the lanterns or the lights, whatever that is. I mean, was one of the coolest things. It kind of reminds me of a couple years ago when they did that with that song that they sang.
Got the whole world in his hands.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of reminded me of that. I mean, that was a great ending to see the lanterns behind him, and I think it's going to be a real good push for Bray, who's been, injured as of recent, and I think it's just great for those guys. I think they have a ton of talent.
And there's a lot of cool talent right there with those new koozies, bottle openers, hats, money clips, T-shirts, and more I've been trying to sell. And you need to go check them out at the RicFlair.com online store. That's your Figure 4 top stories of the week. Coming up on the other side of the break, we've got Cody Rhodes, Part 2.
MLWRadio.com is the place to go to binge on wrestling podcast. Journey deep into the mind of the creative architect behind WCW at its peak, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, each Friday on MSL and Sullivan. Every Thursday, get a humorous take on the squared circle with Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling. The Eastern Lariat hits you every other Saturday with their strong style breakdown on the land of the rising. And kick off your weekend every Friday afternoon with Bauer and Pollock. Join the Fight Network's John Pollock and MMA and pro wrestling producer and executive Court Bauer as they go in depth on the biggest stories in the wrestling and fight world. Plus a hell of a lot more. The world of MLW Radio never stops. Go to MLWRadio.com and binge on pro wrestling talk from the experts now.
Goodness gracious, quit balls of fire!
Woo!
Flair Show.
Don't miss a minute of The Ric Flair Show. Subscribe on iTunes now.
Nature Boy Ric Flair, the heavyweight champion of the world.
Custom-made clothes.
And any woman in the world I want. Just like that.
And now, more Ric Flair.
All right, so now it's time for our main event here on the Ric Flair Show. It's our interview with Cody Rhodes, and it's brought to you by our friends at 1FMC.com. Find out how much you can save on your next home loan by getting a quick quote at 1FMC.com. And if you missed part one of the Cody Rhodes interview, don't worry. It's still in the archives right now, and it's a great listen. And we wrapped up part one with Rick and Cody talking about the title change where Dusty dropped the belt to Rick for the very first time. Why was it booked where it was? Why was it in Missouri? Why was it not in Florida? Why was it in Georgia? Why was it in the Carolinas? How did all that come about? And let's go ahead and rejoin Cody Rhodes and Ric Flair, part two, right here on the Ric Flair Show.
Yeah.
Were you guys as performers privy to what the vote was? Like, did you know ahead of time, or is that something that comes out years later?
No. I knew the Crockett called me and told me. But first of all, I don't think Dusty or myself knew they were having a vote. What happened was that Eddie had so much power, Fritz had so much power, Geigel had a little bit of power, Sam had a ton of power, Barnett had a ton of power, Crockett was pushing for me, Eddie, of course, pushing. And I think because Crockett was getting so big, I mean, all of a sudden it wasn't just Mid-Atlantic. I mean, he was starting to make moves, right? That Crockett pushed them because all those guys resented Jimmy Crockett. I mean, he wasn't a wrestler. They liked his dad, but, Eddie was a former wrestler. Geigel, former wrestler. Barnett, I'm not sure how he got in to begin with. But the Funks, Harley Race, you know what I memean? It's like when Dusty beat Harley, he beat him in Tampa.
Right.
Bayfront Center, man.
Yeah, I mean, and it should have been in a scenario where we both had some steam. We would have torn it down. I mean, but we're sitting there and people are looking at us like, hey, I guess I know Dusty Rhodes. I definitely don't know Ric Flair. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that him winning it at the Bayfront with Harley, because I'm just now thinking about you at Starrcade '83, and it's I believe it's the exact same. It's the same finish. It's a crossbody from the top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
same finish. Harley, man. Yeah. That one that had Harley's number. The old crossbody from the top. Yeah, that had him.
Well, let me tell you, it didn't have Harley's number. It had his blessing.
Yeah, that works.
Because he could have changed it at any point in time.
That works, man.
I told you my favorite Harley race story, right?
You told me a few Harley race stories on the bus, and every one of them I told you about the Hunter one and the Kurt Hennig one. Mm-hmm. Well, I knew you were talking about Harley because you always simulated you were smoking a cigarette to begin.
Yeah. Well, here for the fans that haven't heard this is the first time that Hunter, who came to WCW,
Paul
Levesque, right?
Yeah.
Walked in the locker room, and Harley at that time was managing Vader. So, and Hunter, Paul Hunter had been in the gym business, and I met him at a Gold's Gym convention because I had the 10 Gold's Gyms. I brought the tape back, and bingo, they hired him. So, we're in the locker room, and this obviously is not real, but I like to use these voices. Okay, I go, Harley, I want you to meet a new guy, Paul Levesque, just coming into business. How do you do, Mr. Race? How you doing, kid? I'm good. Who trained you? Killer Kowalski. He's the shits.
Poor Hunter.
I know. What are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? And then the Kurt Hennig one. Kurt Hennig in Kansas City, right? Just a new kid starting in Minneapolis, just down there working because Larry and him, right? He goes, hey, Mr. Race, what's the finish tonight? What's your finish, kid? Drop kick off the top rope? I'll move. Are you kidding me? Those are the best of all time. Oh, He was so intimidating. Harley was afraid of Harley. Oh, jeez.
You know, Dusty. He like you know this obviously, Rick, but obviously, Dad modeled a good deal of his career after Muhammad Ali.
Of course,
especially with like Gordon Soley kind of standing in as his Howard Cosell. He always told me growing up he referred to Harley Race as the George Foreman.
Yeah,
that was his George Foreman.
Yeah,
I always loved the
good analogy.
The parallel. Yeah, that was his George Foreman.
Yeah, he was the shooter.
Yeah.
No, it's funny you said that because I thought it was phenomenal, and I'm sure Conrad and I must have talked about it 100 times, for the NBA Finals to be going on as strong and the ratings that they got for that Friday to completely shut down. And everything for 2 days was committed to Muhammad Ali. Yep. Spoke volumes for who this guy was. I mean, it's really unbelievable. And then the minute the funeral was over, back to basketball. Right. But for that 48 hours, man, it was Muhammad Ali. I mean, and they gave him. I mean, the guy was it. I mean, but your dad was the Muhammad Ali, in terms of, I mean, all the stuff, the wine and dine, the pork and beans. I mean, I don't even know where he got all that shit, but it was phenomenal.
Well. It's like it was. It
you only passed through one time, kid. Why not pass by in a Cadillac?
In a Cadillac. It was one of those.
Well, the rest are out back laughing and joking. I'm out front cooking and smoking.
He was inspired by it, and he made it. He took it to pro wrestling, especially with with Gordon. And you look at those Gordon and Dusty interviews from Championship Wrestling from Florida. I found one the other day. That is likely my favorite Dusty promo, Dusty interview of all time, and it's one that very few people have ever seen. It's about Eric the Red and Sonny King and Pac Song. It's talking about a bounty that Harley Race had, and it's just amazing. But I can see it, especially after digging into Ali here and there. Man, I can see it. It's fun to see, like. Because that's pro wrestling. I always like that, where you can take something from the mainstream and you can mold it to your audience,
Oh, yeah. Well, your dad, I'll tell you another guy that your dad got a little bit from was Thunderbolt Patterson. Your dad, your dad was the White Thunderbolt at that time. Thunderbolt could talk, man.
Yeah.
He was average in the ring, but he could talk. But your dad took Thunderbolt's rap and took it to a whole new level. I mean, that thing that your dad, the Hard Times promo that he made about me and that, I mean, that promo may be one of the greatest promos of all time.
Absolutely.
Hard Times.
I love the Hard Times promo, but I have so many more of his promos that I like. I think it's just because I've seen Hard Times. I've seen it so much. I do remember WWE.com did a best talkers list. Yeah. And I remember my dad was furious.
That I was ahead of him.
I think he was mad about that, and I think but the thing that really set him off was that Thunderbolt Patterson was not on the list.
Yeah. He was pissed. He sent me a text. You're number one. That's I said Heyman. I just call Heyman number 4 now every time I see him.
There you go. Hey, but that's elite company to be up there in that top 5 with.
Oh yeah, it's heat though, man. I just got the vote because I took off my clothes more times in the ring. As Mean Gene would say, here goes the laundry again.
I saw an interview with you the other day where you have these massive shades on.
Yeah, okay.
And this is. I think this is before 1981. I think this is 1980s, and you're talking about The Boy. I'm trying to think. It was on the Rivalries. It was on the Rivalries special that they just put out, but it was excellent. It doesn't even sound like
Me and Your Dad.
No, it was pre.
You're in a feud with a black guy. You called
when
him
you were
Boy.
coming into your own.
Oh, it's Sonny King.
Yeah.
No, who is it? Sonny King you're talking about?
It was Rufus.
Yes.
No, you're talking about Conway. Something Conway.
Tiger Conway?
Tiger, yeah, you're talking about, and you keep calling him a boy, and you got these big ass shades on.
That stuff wouldn't fly now. No, Jesus.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Are you kidding me? I'm just glad that social media wasn't around back then because you didn't think about it.
Yeah,
and nobody was uncomfortable with it. You know what I mean? Tiger Conway and I were good friends, as were Rufus and I. I'll tell you something that's funny, and I didn't know this. Cody, you were there. Did you realize that? I'm drawing a blank. What's the kid's name that inducted Bossman?
That was his kids, right?
His kids did Bossman.
No, okay, not Bossman. Who was it? Slick?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what Slick is?
Oh,
the manager, Slick, yeah.
You know what Slick is?
Yeah.
Who is it?
I don't know.
It's Rufus R. Jones' son.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that. He inducted Bossman, didn't he?
You're right.
Yeah.
We were just thinking about, his family accepted.
Yeah, no, Slick is Rufus R. Jones' son, and somebody told me that because his dad and I we had great times. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Legacy.
The night he challenged Roddy Piper to drink moonshine, and we went to the interviews in the morning, and your dad said, "Where's Rufus?" And we couldn't find him, and they called from the Kentucky Fried Chicken place on
he was passed out on the hood, right?
Passed out on the hood of his car. Piper left him for dead. Kentucky Fried Chicken called the office and go, "I think one of your wrestlers is still in the parking lot."
That's hilarious.
I remember my dad.
Don't mess with Piper.
So, Cody, we've talked this whole time, and we haven't talked about your brother. What in the hell is he doing? He's found like the fountain of youth. He's performing at a high level, and it doesn't seem like that should be the case as long as he's been in the business. What's the secret? And tell us about your brother a little bit.
I think Dustin's heard this before. He's like, I always call him WWE's Benjamin Button because the guy's getting older, and it seems like he's getting younger. Here's some things that people do not realize, that Dustin and I are 16 years apart, and we grew up in completely different households, and we essentially, even though Dusty is our father, we essentially grew up with different fathers because of how Dusty was when he had Dustin versus how Dusty was when he had me. With that said, the first time we really got the first true, real bonding experience in my entire life with Dustin was when he came up and we had our six-man with our tag match for that with the Shield at Battleground, and then moving forward after that, winning the tag titles and the run we had as Goldust and Cody Rhodes prior to the Stardust Goldust stuff. So I think watching him is incredibly motivating. The thing I'm most proud of about Dustin, and this is documented, so I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, is Dustin is completely clean from, he had his demons and battles with addiction, and he got completely clean and has been completely clean for many years. And I say that with a lot of pride because a lot of guys, especially pro wrestlers, will preach to you about they're either born again or they're clean, but they're not. When you go clean after a battle with addiction, that means it's cold turkey. There's nothing. There's no alcohol. There's no vices of that nature. And he's one of the few I've seen that really fully commits to his sobriety, and he fills it in. He fills it in with training and with wrestling. He will not go out on a live event for a 5-minute match, no matter what they tell him to do. He's got to get a sweat. He's got to get moving. He's got to feel the people. He's a very special performer for sure, and I'm thankful I got the chance to know him via that tag team run, because people assume, oh, you guys are brothers. Barely saw each other until I was about 15 years old, and then to get the chance to work with him was something I never expected and was really happy about.
Yeah, well, he's a great kid. I mean, everybody's aware of the issues. I mean, and they're, God forbid, nobody can point fingers at anybody in our business, period. Yeah. But he has, and he's just a great guy, and I see him all the time. And of course, I texted him the other day on the anniversary. I talked to your mom on the phone. I text you. I mean, and it's just, It's a wonderful opportunity, and I was hoping, and I talked to him about it. I understood it was an opportunity probably for him to coach at NXT. I think that's what he wants to do, but they want him to work full time. Does that sound right?
I believe that's the case.
Especially with the brand split.
Yeah, I know that first thing that I kind of logical thing I thought of when I walked into the Performance Center to get my dad's stuff out of his office.
Yeah.
Was I thought who is going to do the interview class? My father called it a communications class.
Yeah.
And who's going to do that? That can, you don't have to fill his shoes, but that was like the coolest thing about the Performance Center. There's so many wonderful things about that facility and all that, but it's not about drills or a schedule or signing food out from the fridge or whatever the hell it's about. That was the coolest thing, was Dusty was teaching the interview class. Mm-hmm. So who fills that? And I thought, well, from modern day experience, knowing what perhaps the top brass at WWE wants, Goldust would be a great person to fill that role. But I think it's just a work in progress with finding what he might do there, because Dustin also can still give in the ring. But when I went there, it makes me concerned. That Dream is no longer leading the communications class, because I thought that was a really invaluable experience that kind of first generation of NXT superstars got, and I hope they fill it somewhere with somebody that can help.
You know how much it meant to Ashley or Charlotte. I mean, she was mesmerized, and he was so supportive. And actually, it took her a while. I mean, but now that she's found herself, man, her self-confidence, and it's like anything else. It just doesn't come overnight. You know what I mean? But now that she's got it, man, and by the way, she loves you, as you know, right? So, I guess you guys talked yesterday, right?
She was on she told me she was saying, have a good time talking with Rick. She was on his bulletin board, and there was only a few people on the bulletin board in his office. The ladies of that bulletin board were his daughters, Brandy, Stephanie McMahon, and Ashley. So it was a pretty tall cotton on the bulletin board. So I'm glad they got to cross paths there too. I think that's cool that Dusty Rhodes got to help teach Charlotte, the family business that goes on.
Yeah, it was great, and she loved him, and it's like she goes. The other day, I'm just driving on the road, right? I get a text. Don't forget to text Michelle. Right, this is Ashley, right? And I go, what are you talking about? And she goes, I said, Michelle, who? She said, Dusty. And she's so conscientious. I mean, her schedule is ridiculous right now. You realize that?
Oh, yeah.
But to be that conscientious of that moment, when it should be my responsibility to remember, right? So then I call your mom and catch up with her again. But she sounds like she's doing great. I'm not trying to bounce around here, but it's the family thing was. I'm still Conrad had a commitment because he would have been at the funeral too. He was such a huge fan of your dad. And the thing that's funny is I had made a deal with Michelle for Dusty to come to Conrad's house. And and he was where Conrad he brings people over here, and he brings about 10 of his friends in, and they tell stories and eat steaks and have a good time. And they also have a beverage. And I think Michelle agreed to me just to pacify me. But at that time, your dad wasn't drinking or anything, which I didn't know.
No, yeah.
It had been a year since he'd had a career. I mean, to me, that'd be rough for me. Every time I come here, I got to tell you, I have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning.
Check liver lights on.
I could always get him to, when I'd come over when we were both living in Orlando the last few years, I could always get him. He got this weird where he'd like to drink the full-bodied beverage. Like he'd like a original Coors, you know, in the banquet in the gold can. So I got him. You know, he was easy to break in that regard. My mom is really doing, like, it's amazing. She got a job at a dentist's office, and she's kind of learning to live again a little bit. And the cool thing, I was able to sign the royalties from the aforementioned Dusty Rhodes book all to her. So that like, you know, Dusty's the gift that keeps on giving, and that's how he was anyway. So I like it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, your mom deserves everything, but she's close to Teal, which has got to be nice. Yeah. The grandchildren. How many Teal?
They're right there.
Teal has two, right?
Yeah, Teal has Maris there first. Her and Kevin Maris and Kellen and you know Maris's name, because you know this. Dusty was a diehard New York Yankees fan.
Oh yeah,
so there's Maris's namesake, and then you know Kristen has Dylan and Dalton, and then Dustin has Dakota. So she's got a slew of grandkids. She's really into the grandma thing.
Yeah, Kristen's in Austin, right? Still.
Yeah, Kristen's in Austin, up there in the hills, and you know, and then Dustin's Orlando, and Teal's back at kind of where we grew up, essentially in Marietta, and that's where Mom is too.
Yeah. Well, that's great, man. Well, life sounds good for you, pal.
It's great. It's great. It really is. Last week was very exciting, getting big news and make that little trip to Hollywood, which was really, it paid off. I'm going out there next week to. No, that's
the
more.
guy. That's the guy that you had you wrestled on the show, right?
SummerSlam, right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure, because I'm not into that as much. I have to make sure I can identify. Hey, I have one more question for you. I've never asked you. I asked Teddy a couple times, Senior. Whatever you guys seemed like the perfect team. What happened with that deal?
With Ted Jr.?
Yeah. Do you remember when you and me and Orton fought all the way down to the ring, and Orton fed me into you guys, and you guys did.
Oh, I remember in the cage. We got you in the cage.
Yeah, and beat the crap out. Yeah,
letting you breathe.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? And I was going to Cody. Be careful. They were double suplexing me or some damn thing. And, you know, at 106 years old, just give it to him again.
I think. So I think what happened. You know, I can't speak for Ted. I can say that they gave us the ball for the legacy.
I know.
And they gave us the ball when we were incredibly young. I was 21, turning 22 when I first teamed up with Teddy. And the next thing you know, we're wrestling, we're competing against Batista and Triple H. And I feel like we did.
And having good matches, too.
Oh.
Having really good matches.
Some of the most informative matches of my career are the handicap style matches we had with Triple H over in the UK, where to be able to wrestle against him and the Undertaker 10 nights in a row when you're 22 years old, and your mouth is shut and your ears are open. But all the same, I think one of the issues was we probably were not ready for any of that, because when it came kind of like nut cutting time, or like Shawn Michaels asked me, he's like, well, what are you going to do? You know, what's going to lead into that, and what things are you going to be known for in the ring? And up until that point in my career, I'd really just kind of listened. And I remember that was, Shawn told me, one of his big things is that getting over is a full-time job. And it was at that point, right at the end, where we were splitting up, which Arn Anderson was adamantly against splitting us up. He wanted to keep me and Teddy together for another year, another 2 years. And as often I find out with Arn was right. We would have been able to learn and grow together as professional wrestlers, as technicians, because I didn't have a clue. I always tell people I'm not really classically trained. I really learned as we went. I did not have a clue holds, maneuvers, all this stuff that today, like wrestling is the best of the best. Guys like Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens and Cesaro, there's a sporting element to what they do, and I didn't know it at that point early on. So looking back, we probably should have stayed together.
Yeah.
Hey, Cody, I've got a question about last year. You were in a feud with Goldust, Stardust and Goldust, and everybody kind of thought that was heading towards WrestleMania, and then at Fastlane, it was done. Was the plan to end at Fastlane, or did fans just make that up on their own, that it was going to hopefully be a WrestleMania match, or what happened there?
It was never intended to be a WrestleMania match. Fastlane was it. I was in the ladder match in San Jose for the Intercontinental Championship. I had been informed as such. No, it was never meant to be beyond Fastlane. You say it was done. The way I look at it, Fastlane was a total dud.
Yeah,
it was a total dud, and people think, oh well, the finish got screwed up. The finish didn't get screwed up. The match just sucked, and it's just one of those nights where I kick myself to this day about it. I wish it had connected further, because on the live events, Dustin and I were having this really fun, and the crowds were really involved with it. Tremendous interaction. It just didn't work at Fastlane. It might have been too soon. Maybe it should have gone to WrestleMania. I don't particularly think so. And the other thing is we involved Dad,
right? And
we involved him in a way that was not believable. When we had involved him prior for Battleground, you could see the love. You could see the family. I always think of Dusty as Anthony Hopkins in Legends of the Fall at that Battleground match.
Yeah.
It was like his last stand, and he was so proud of when he gave the elbow to Dean Ambrose that the people got up. And at that point in the match, I could tell, like, oh, wow, we did something here. And then to bring him back for we don't like Dad, or in my case, I don't like Dad, and some of the stuff like you're dead to me and all that, it's one of those things that I felt the viewer knew. Dusty has been my best friend. He was. Like, I am so lucky to have him as a dad. He was my coach, my best friend, my mentor, everything. So it just, I don't know. It just didn't click. But it never was meant to be at WrestleMania, I can tell you that.
Well, let me just say this to you in closing. I, as a guy that I've been the Black Scorpion, I've been committed to the mental institution, the Florida State. I mean, there's nothing.
Buried in the desert.
I've been buried in the desert. There isn't too much that I haven't done. But I want to tell you something. It takes an incredible amount of talent to do the gimmick that you were doing and that Dustin does. I mean, one of my favorite things years ago was when Dustin had the Tourette gimmick. I mean, it was, but I mean, you jumped right into that gimmick. Maybe you weren't happy with it, but you pulled it off. And I mean, you did. And it was, if you're looking at it in terms of, boy, this guy's got a lot of talent. Do you like it for him personally? Did I like it for you personally? No. But you pulled it off, and it was entertaining. And and you could see by the fact that you were on TV every week that the people enjoyed it and the company enjoyed it. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you this. And I don't think many people know this. The goal of Stardust was, you said it, like that is Dustin's character. Goldust is Dustin's character. So to be like a light version of him was probably a career nightmare and dream, and just terrible idea, perhaps. But the idea was, when we got it, okay, it doesn't have to be androgynous. It doesn't have to be Goldust. You can be a supervillain. And okay, I'll be like Jim Carrey and the Riddler, and I'll find myself a superhero. And then I, had the match with Stephen Amell, who's on TV as a DC. He's the damn Green Arrow as an actual superhero. So I was like, this is perfect. And then there was supposed to be another match, and we had practices scheduled, and we were going to be at Hell in the Cell. And that match was supposed to be the end of Stardust. It was supposed to be, if Stardust loses to the Green Arrow, he'll return as Cody Rhodes. And when that didn't happen, that was one of the first kind of kicking the balls for me because you said something to me on the bus, and I don't know if you remember it, but you mentioned that I'm not going to say it because you said it to me, but basically in summation said that I'd outgrown the character.
I told you you had? Yeah, you have.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll take credit for saying that.
And I thought, well, there's kind of no end in sight, and I don't want a fan, if somebody says, oh, that's Cody Rhodes, and they say, who? Because they know me as Stardust, that would just, it would just break my heart. So it was, part of my decision to peace out there at the end. But I do appreciate Conrad, especially. I appreciate I every time I was in it, I wanted to give it 200% because when you're in it and you're out there, no matter if you love it or hate it, and, talking about the Black Scorpion and all that, there's still people sitting in the seats and they paid time to deliver.
One of the things I just realized as you were talking about that is the Stardust gimmick. Is that kind of like your version of the polka dots? Because your dad got that over when nobody thought, it had any business getting over. And then you got this Stardust thing over, which really, golly, you exceeded all expectations with that. It was a lot better than it had any business being. And a lot of that was because of you. Yeah.
I think somebody said, hey, good job on dancing through your polka dots to me on social media the other day. And I thought, that's a cool thing to say. It was definitely, Finley brought it up to me a couple times. It was definitely a chance to be something other than just a clean cut, arrogant legacy or even like a clean cut white meat babyface. It was definitely a chance to be something different. And I was really looking forward. Well, shit, I'm still looking forward to it because I'm wrestling Kurt Angle on the 27th. I'm wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. at Evolve in my first match back. The thing I was looking forward to showing now that I've taken it off, the layers and the depth that it added to me. I learned a lot from the first year of Stardust, a lot. And I always like Fit telling me that.
This just gave me an idea. Give me 90 days, kid.
Oh, no.
Give me 90 days.
Oh, no.
Stargate 2016.
Yeah, no, wait. Give me 90 days, man. We'll get someone to book it in Spartanburg. Okay?
Oh, it's got to, but it would be in Flair country. Ooh.
Yeah, no, that's okay. At this point in time, I'm inclined to ask anybody what isn't Flair country. If they woo at the ESPYs next Wednesday, I will actually get up and give my whole dialogue about keeping the alligators down.
Hey, are you at the ESPYs?
Yeah, I'm walking the red carpet with Ashley.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah.
Are you going to be in L.A. next week? Because I'm in L.A. all next week. We need to hang out.
Well, good for you. I'm coming in Tuesday night. Let's do it. God, you're going to have to break down now and have some premium beer.
You're the only one.
Or a glass of wine for sure.
I remember Tyler Breeze on the bus when you kept handing me Coors Light, and I came back and he goes, "You don't even drink Coors Light." I said, "With Ric Flair, I do." So.
Well, listen, riding over there, it's not exactly like it's. Everybody thinks, oh, it's all the glitz and glamour. Those 5-hour bus rides, man, you got to have a beverage. I used to ride with Hunter and Sean, and they'd watch 48. I would go to the back of the bus and start raising hell with John Cena. That's when John was allowed to go out, right? And Sean would say to me, "You ever going to grow up?" I said, "Not as long as I'm in this business."
No.
Well, let me tell you, by the end of the week, I had Sean drinking. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The Hardy Boys carried him to his room one night.
Hey, speaking of Hardy Boys.
It's something when the Hardy Boys carry you to your room. Wow.
Cody, I got to ask. Yeah. It's what everybody's talking about. Did you see the Broken Matt, Brother Nero final deletion?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, what's your takeaway? Rick saw it this morning, and I'd like to hear your thoughts.
So when I left, Matt Hardy was actually one of the first people who reached out to me. And that was really cool because we didn't really particularly click when I was doing Dashing Cody Rhodes and Matt, his last few months with WWE. And I thought that was really cool. And looking at that, I'm like a old school type, I guess, just because of what I grew up on. it seems to have been incredibly effective, whether you love it or hate it, because everyone's talking about it.
Right.
We're talking about it now. So anytime we're talking about Stardust, Brother Nero is a good example. Anytime you actually take a shot at being something other than you are, it sometimes is a miss, sometimes is a hit. I think right now they've got a hit because everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, I told Conrad, so watch, they'll be back on Raw in 2 weeks.
Well, that's how it works. There's the next thing you know, the buzz picks back up, and then
exactly
here you are.
Exactly.
Well, the buzz is all over you, man. Tell everybody listening how they can keep up with all things Cody Rhodes.
The great thing is every match we're having, if it's on the list, if it's not on the list, they're all going on to that at Cody Rhodes Twitter, which is really my only form of social media, but nothing, I'm remiss about nothing on that Twitter. If there's a match and it's coming to your town, you'll see it there. The first weekend with Evolve, that's actually the night my 90 days non-compete is up, was Zack Sabre Jr. The next night with Chris Hero, and then the following weekend is the weekend with the Miracle Mike Bennett, and of course the American Hero Kurt Angle for Northeast Wrestling. So they're just the rollout, and the matches we haven't announced are just as exciting as the matches we have announced. And not to mention, as I can't say anything too deep, but coming to the CW as part of the Arrow universe in season 5, I think wrestling fans, if they're not familiar with Arrow and the Berlanti universe that is the DC superhero shows, they're going to be really impressed and really enjoy what they're allowing you to do.
Well, that's great. Well, listen, you give my best to Mike. He's a hell of a guy, and I'm sure he'll take good care of you and Kurt. I'm sure it'll be sold out, and I'll be talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to entertain the world today, along with Conrad and myself. We had a ball.
Thank you so much.
The legend, Conrad. Thank you, guys.
Listen, you don't realize that his place in Alabama is referred to as the
Conradison. Let's just stick with that.
It's the Conradison, but to a lot of people around this part of the country,
here we go.
It's the Mustang Ranch of the Southeast.
Wow.
I do realize that because you told me on the bus. Conrad, he sings your praises. He sings your praises, man. You guys are good.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks for joining the show, man. We really appreciate you taking the time. This is, probably the hottest free agent in all of wrestling that we had on the show. We can't thank you enough.
And my best to Brandy and your mom and the whole family, buddy, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
As your dad would say, don't be afraid to live the legend, man.
Living on the edge of a lightning bolt.
That's it, buddy. Love you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Love you, too.
All right, Rick, so that is the conclusion of our Cody Rhodes interview. The original plan, of course, was not to have a part 1 and 2, but once we got going, man, I feel like we covered a lot of cool stuff with Cody.
Yeah, he's awesome, and we didn't realize when we taped just how long it would go and how entertaining it was. And he's actually not only being a phenomenal talent, he is a very, very intellectual young man. And he never stopped talking. It was very interesting. I don't think anybody could ever say, boy, this thing dragged. It was really good, and happy for him, happy for his future, happy for his family.
And we're happy to go ahead and have Cody Rhodes. Follow him on Twitter, at Cody Rhodes. He's got lots of awesome matches coming up you don't want to miss, including Kurt Angle. It's going to be hard to beat. It's August 27th. Check it out. And now
I may have to attend that.
I mean, why not? What a hell of a card.
Cody, as much as we respect you, good luck.
All right, let's transition. Let's switch gears here. It's time to go to This Week in History.
It is now time for This Week in History on The Ric Flair Show. Woo! Brought to you by MidAtlanticGateway.com. Dick Bourne is celebrating the memories of Jim Crockett Promotions every day at MidAtlanticGateway.com.
The Great American Bash is this Sunday, and fans, we have a very, very exclusive announcement from Mr. Jim Herd, Executive Vice President of World Championship Wrestling, not only concerning the world title and it being vacant, but concerning the two men who will go up in the main event this Sunday at the Great American Bash. Let's hear right now these comments from Mr. Jim Herd.
Hello, wrestling fans. Jim Herd, Executive Vice President of World Championship Wrestling, with a very important statement for you fans. World Championship Wrestling is saddened to report that after extensive negotiations with Nature Boy Ric Flair, stretching over the course of nearly 1 year, the parties have been unable to arrive at a mutually satisfactory contractual relationship. As a result, the WCW board has decided that the best course of action for WCW and its fans is to declare the World Championship title vacant and to determine a new champion at the Great American Bash this Sunday in Baltimore. Lex Luger, the #1 contender and current United States champion, will remain on the title card at the Bash. His opponent, as determined by the WCW board, is one you've been waiting for and asking for a long time. It's Barry Windham versus Lex Luger at the Great American Bash in Baltimore. On a personal note, I'd like to take this opportunity to extend my best wishes to Ric Flair and wish him the best in the future. He is a great champion.
All right, so Rick, 25 years ago this week, WCW brought us the Great American Bash, 1991. It was live from Baltimore, and this was the first big show since you had left. You had a little bit of a falling out with Jim Herd, and you guys failed to come to terms on a new contract. The entire crowd all night was chanting, "We want Flair." You just heard the statement that Jim Herd issued on the program where he said you were a great champion, and he just added it there at the end as a personal note. What the hell happened, Rick?
Well, I wish he would have been that respectful during negotiations. There really were no negotiations. He just, as I've said before, and I'm certainly not going to pull back on it, he was abrasive, he was overbearing, he didn't know anything about the wrestling business, and he obviously didn't have any respect for me. I don't know what forced him into making those comments where he actually showed some respect for me and wished me well, because that certainly wasn't the case. He basically lied to me for a year. And when I finally said, no, I'm not doing something until you give me the contract you promised me from the day you came here, because I'd already turned down several opportunities to go to the WWE. I kept waiting on him because my friends were there, and my alliance and my allegiance and my loyalty, and not that I didn't have friends up at the WWE, but that's where I'd been my whole career, and I was loyal to them. And he just, the story is it is what it is. He lied to me, and he didn't come through, and then he threatened me, and I didn't react well to being threatened, so I just said, "See you when I see you."
Well, that night they used one of Dusty's old Florida belts that they kind of rigged up for the show to present to Lex Luger, and they had another belt ordered with Reggie Parks that just hadn't made its way there yet. I read recently, though, when they finally got the belt back from you, I know that you wanted to get your $25,000 plus interest. I read the other day that they had to pay you $50,200. Does that sound right?
$46,800.
Wow. That's a hell of a lot of interest.
Well, I had it for a long time. It may be $50,000. I can't remember. It's in that ballpark. There could be. If you had read that somewhere that from a site that's fairly legitimate, that could be the number. It was a lot of money. What happened was every time I lost it, I didn't ask for the money back.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not just interest on $25,000. I just never got it back. After Barnett lost control, they just sat on it, and I brought it to their attention, I would have handed it to him that day, but then I knew I had no chance of getting my money back. I don't think anybody can fault me for that. It's a lot of money.
Absolutely it is. Okay, let's go ahead and transition over to #AskNate. It's brought to you by 1FMC.com. Get a better home loan and find out how much money you can save for free at 1FMC.com. And here's how this works. If you'd like to ask Rick a question, just tweet us using #AskNate, and we can ask your question next week on the show. All right, Rick, let's get into it. Michael Wittes on Twitter as @HoundDog1987 asks, Rick, what made you want to use the figure 4 for a finisher instead of something else?
Well, basically, after the airplane crash, George Scott, who I have respected, and he's gone now, he's passed, but gave me the idea of trying to pull the Buddy Rogers gimmick, I guess is the word, off, and the Buddy Rogers gimmick off, and that's how it all started. And Buddy, that was actually just finishing hold. And, the guy currently who was in at that time was Jack Briscoe, so I automatically asked Jack, and he said, yeah, no problem, because Jack was winding down. Actually, Jack was still the world champion at that time. So, anyway, Jack and I were close, and I asked him, and he said, no problem, The difference between me and Jack and Buddy was that I never won. I never learned how to put it on, apparently, the right way.
Oh, my. Whatever. Whatever.
Guy, people figured out how to turn that. It worked on TV in this little 3-minute match, but when I got to the arena, I couldn't figure out what. I was applying it differently, apparently.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, let's take a time out here on the Ric Flair Show and tell you about our great sponsor, First Family Mortgage. Last week we had an awesome cameo from Fifi the French maid, and today we've got another cameo. What are the odds that someone calls First Family Mortgage and doesn't save money?
No chance in hell!
And when you find out how much money you can save at 1fmc.com, you'll probably have a message for your existing mortgage company. What would that be?
You're fired!
If Vince says it's a good idea, it's probably a good idea. Check it out, 1fmc.com.
Woo! Woo! Don't miss a minute of The Ric Flair Show. Subscribe on iTunes now.
The Ric Flair Show.
My name's Ric Flair.
Woo! And now, more Ric Flair.
I'm going on tour next week. Cincinnati, Dayton, Akron, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Memphis, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Greensboro, Richmond, Norfolk, Columbia, Greenville, Atlanta, Georgia, the Omni, Jacksonville, Orlando, West Palm Beach, Miami, Tampa, Birmingham, Alabama, New Orleans, Indianapolis, Chicago, Green Bay, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Des Moines, Iowa, St. Louis, Missouri, Kansas City, Wichita, Albuquerque, LA, Frisco, Japan, Russia, China, Melbourne, Yugoslavia, Spain, all over Europe.
Hit me. All right, so you're listening to the Ric Flair Show right now, so of course you get to hear from Rick, but wouldn't it be cool if you actually got to see Rick? Well, you can do that. All you've got to do is go to RicFlairShow.com, click appearances at the top bar, and it's going to take you to a direct link to all of Rick's appearances that he's got lined up over the next few weeks. Specifically, I'm talking to you, Chantilly, Virginia. The Nature Boy's coming to your town this weekend. It's July 16th and 17th. He'll be at the Dulles Expo Center right there in Chantilly. MAB celebrities bringing him in, so you won't just have a chance to meet Rick. You can get your picture with him. You can get any item signed, and there's going to be lots of other folks there. Jack Lambert, Reggie Jackson, Lou Brock, Julius Erving, Joe Theismann. Lots of big stars, all the way down to folks like Frank Thomas and Johnny Bench. Even the old school ball players are going to be there, and you can check them out this weekend. And maybe celebrities bringing them in. It's the show at Chantilly. It's the Dulles Expo Center. It's this weekend. Now, coming up later in the month, July 23rd, the WWE Legends are going to be in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Be sure to check that out at the Sands Bethlehem Event Center. That's on Saturday, July 23rd. July 30th, Rick's back on the road again, this time for Rumble in Rockland. It's in Pomona, New York. It's at the Palisades Credit Union Park. That's coming up Saturday, July 30th. The Rumble in Rockland in Pomona, New York. Don't miss Ric Flair when he comes to your town. Just go to thericflairshow.com and click the Appearances tab at the very top. Of course, check them out on Facebook. All right, let's take a time out here to pay some bills. But really, let's talk about making your own championship belt. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be the heavyweight champion of the world? Well, you don't have to wonder anymore. Thanks to DaveMillikenBelts.com. We've got Dave with us today. And Dave, you've made belts for everybody, isn't that right?
Lip Sync Battle, WWE, I'm where the pros go.
Absolutely. Here's the thing. If you've seen it on TV, odds are pretty good that Dave Milliken made it. So don't just get a $400 replica. Get one like the pros wear. And all you've got to do is go to that site. What is it again, Dave?
DaveMillikenBelts.com.
Get that sandwich out of your pie hole and listen up, maggot. It's time for Mail Call.
All right, let's go to the voicemail of the week, and this is probably going to be Rick's new favorite feature here on the show. It's brought to you by DaveMillikenBelts.com. If you want to style and profile on your very own championship title belt and wear what the pros wear, a Dave Milliken belt is the way to go at DaveMillikenBelts.com. And we want to hear from you. Give us a call using our Ric Flair Show hotline. It's 844-RIC-SHOW. That is a toll-free number. Leave us a great voicemail. We want to know your name, the city you're from, and what your hot take is. And it's 844-RIC-SHOW. We've got kind of a funny one here for you this week, Rick.
Let her roll.
Hi there, my name's Barry Tarver. I'm a motivational speaker for an assisted living senior center here in San Antonio, Texas. And I'm just calling because every time I hear Ric Flair speak, he talks about being the 16-time world champion. And that's real motivating. And I was wondering, I've heard him also say every 16 win also meant 16 losses. So as a motivational speaker, I wanted to know what kind of motivation could he give to my assisted living seniors? I would be much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Flair. And like I tell all my residents, do what you want to do.
Well, what do you think, Rick? What does the motivational speech look like for the seniors at the senior center there in San Antonio?
Well, somehow I figured that because I'm a senior now that someone sent this to make fun of me. But I have said on many occasions that 16 times, man, I lost it 16 times. So the only message I can send is you just got to keep on keeping on. So I never gave up, and every time I lost it, I actually believed at some point in time I'd get it back until my skills started to, what's the word I'm looking for?
Diminish?
Diminish, yeah. And then, of course, when my skills started to diminish, I started to become a little bit more entertaining. So, no belt, but more entertainment. No title.
So there you go, Senior Center. Keep the chin up. All right, let's close it out, Rick. Let's do some shout-outs. I think we want to plug at Legacy Talent LLC. What do people need to know about Melinda and the fine folks at Legacy Talent?
Melinda Morris Zanoni is the greatest entertainment lawyer and agent in the country. She currently is in Malibu. I will probably see her today or tomorrow. She offices mainly out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Her home, Legacy Talent, is one of the greatest talent agencies anywhere in the country. I highly recommend anybody that needs help. And they work on numerous different projects. But she has changed my life and it's helped me to become the polarizing star that.
Not so polar. I love it, man. I love it.
Polarizing.
Well, only every now and again. Every now and again, you've known to be a little.
I'm telling you, if they start going woo tonight at the SP Zone, I won't leave. They'll have to have me escorted from the building if I get one woo.
I'm pretty sure you're getting a lot of woos. That's why WWE wants you to go. I'm pretty sure those ball players don't really care about some of the WWE superstars, but everybody loves the Nature Boy.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Let's go ahead and.
Once again, I've gone into a moderation state, and I spent $5,000 on clothes just for tonight. So, hope something works.
Well, we do too. Good luck tonight.
Time I've got to cut all this stuff out. I don't need to wear something new every day, damn it. And I clearly have overstayed my welcome. Good Lord. God.
Well, we've overstayed our welcome on this week's show. Let's get through our shout-outs. At MLW, they're hosting us here on the MLW Radio Network. Our awesome guest, Cody Rhodes, is on Twitter, at Cody Rhodes. Of course, the guy who makes us sound good, at Jerome Fisher VO. And, of course, our sponsors, at 1FMC, at MA Gateway, at Dave Milliken. And shout-out to our buddy at Leather by Dan. We're going to be back next week, Rick, and I think we may have a fun surprise next week.
If we pull this off, and I'll know today, I don't want to throw it out there just in case it doesn't happen, we'll be in a really good place. And I'll have to send our rating and our placement in the national scene to both Chris Jericho and Steve.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how we can beat this week, but we'll see you next week here on The Ric Flair Show.
Thanks, guys. Woo!
MLWradio.com is the place to go to binge on wrestling podcast. Journey deep into the mind of the creative architect behind WCW at its peak, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, each Friday on MSL and Sullivan. Every Thursday, get a humorous take on the Squared Circle with Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling. The Eastern Lariat hits you every other Saturday with their strong style breakdown on the land of the rising. And kick off your weekend every Friday afternoon with Bauer and Pollock. Join the Fight Network's John Pollock and MMA and pro wrestling producer and executive Court Bauer as they go in depth on the biggest stories in the wrestling and fight world. Plus a hell of a lot more. The world of MLW Radio never stops. Go to MLWradio.com and binge on pro wrestling talk from the experts now.
The world of MLW Radio never stops.